It's been a few months since I've done one of these, and my intent originally was to make these videos to assuage people's anxieties that this company was a scam or a Ponzi scheme or something like that. And I realized that by not making one of these every month anymore, I may have somehow signaled that that it is in fact a scam, and it's not. It's definitely not, as far as I know. Nothing's changed. It's one of those things about human nature where when something starts off as really amazing and interesting, and then as time goes on, you get used to it, and then it becomes normal, and then it becomes boring. And maybe I started to feel that a little bit in the last couple months, is that the dividends were just so regular and consistent that it's not interesting anymore. It's just like I expect it to work now. Maybe that is a problem because that's when you open yourself up to complacency. But anyways, it's been good. The dividends have been going up slightly over the last couple months. I just got the last one. I just transferred it out. It was $391, which is a little bit higher than in the past. And I haven't added any more money to this. You can see, actually, it says member since December 2024. So it's been just over a year now since I first started my investment in here. And then I really started ramping it up around February of this year. So from February, it's been increasing slightly over the months. And I've also been taking out the dividends. Here, I originally invested $67,000, and it's now has a market value of almost 71,000, and I've taken out 3,000 in dividends. Pretty good. I think it comes out to something like 6 or 7% dividend return. The same thing, about 6 or 7% of market value increase, annualized. This internal rate of return is a slightly different metric because you get monthly dividends, not annual. It's worth a little bit more in IRR terms, and then because it's not a perpetual asset, like if you have a stock that's paying out dividends, you still have the value of the stock after the dividend is paid minus a small amount, but the company still exists afterwards. In this case, the value of the asset decreases over time and eventually becomes zero at the end. So the dividends are larger, but your asset value, your market value, will decrease over time. Right now, it's increasing because the dividends are slightly less than the average projected over the lifetime of the project. So this is a little bit of a complicated thing that they explain. If you are really interested in it, you can talk to the investment the investor relations guy, Tyler, at the company, and he's explained it all to me. He will explain it to you, as he probably has to hundreds of people, thousands of people maybe. um, but so this IRR number is contrived. It's produced by the company, based on their estimates of how much the projects will produce in their total, and then they kind of they pay out dividends based on what is actually being produced right now, and then they adjust the market value, um, a little bit arbitrarily, like just to compensate for what you didn't get in dividends, but what you will get eventually in this IRR. Now, the thing I don't understand is if something goes wrong that they don't anticipate, um, how and when they adjust the market value for that. So um, that's not clear to me, and that's where there could be, I don't know, say like one of these things just catches on fire and burns down. Do they immediately subtract that from your market value, or do they start to take that out over time, or do they just keep everything the same and try to compensate in some other way? It's not clear to me how that would work, and that's maybe a portion of the risk. Now, the I think the biggest risk in this investment is the currency inflation or deflation relative to the US. Because it's in Brazil, they have different inflation rates, and historically, Brazilian currency has has had some issues with inflation, hyperinflation. Hopefully, that's all behind us in the in the modern era. Like hyperinflation seems to be a thing of the past, but we'll see. Not all countries have the same uh, market power as the U.S. Government does it as far as controlling inflation. So we'll see. Um, so that's, I think, the biggest risk is that all the customers of this project are paying in Brazilian currency, and then it gets converted into U.S. currency when it gets paid out as dividends. So um, if that currency devalues a lot relative to the U.S., then our dividends go down, and there's no coming back from that because yeah, there's like zero chance that it will deflate in the future once it starts inflating. So, anyways, that's that. Um, I think that I'm very happy with this investment overall. Like, obviously, it's not doing as well. Like in the current economy, my money would have been way better invested in, especially around this time. Like, this is when right around here is when the market dipped. So if I had, I think it was in March when everything went down to the bottom. So if I had not invested here and had just invested in stocks, I would have had like a huge return on that money. But I think I'm happy that that I'm still okay. You know, my my, my account is still okay, and I didn't need that money to live. And I think that investing a small, well, not a small, a very pretty sizable portion of my investments in renewable energy is a good thing to do, and I'm happy that I can do that and I can afford to do that um, because it's as we see down here, over the lifetime of this investment will power 76 US homes for 1 year, or as I think about it, one home for 76 years. So this is almost completely offsetting my entire lifetime energy production, as if I had built a solar panel on top of my house. But, you know, I live in an apartment, so that's not really feasible. But I believe that that putting renewable energy in Brazil is just as good as putting it here in the US. And if it costs less to do it in Brazil, then let's do it in Brazil. Um, okay, so there's that. What else? I think so. One thing that I've started to notice over the last few months is that people care less um, about renewable energy than they did in the past, and this is just my anecdotal experience. Um, it seems like it's less of an issue now. And why is that? I think part of it is because the effects of climate change were overstated, um, because scientists often have this, maybe not just scientists, but politicians and activists have this need to make everything sound urgent if they want to get people on board, get investment, get excitement around their issue. They have to over exaggerate the impact of what they're doing. So, unfortunately, I think they went too far saying things like, you know, this 2-degree change is going to be the end of life as we know it, and saying things like all the every natural disaster in the world is a direct result of climate change. These are things that I used to hear a lot, and they just seem like a little bit overstated. I think we've like actually gotten worse on progress towards net zero emissions, and things are still fine, right? Like I don't think any of us has noticed a change in anything at all. The costs of goods are largely not due to climate change, and the frequency of natural disasters and things seem to be attributed to things other than climate change. So I think there may be some fatigue around that and people realizing that those things were not true. And also the development of these like drilling, fracking, and horizontal drilling technologies and things like that that kept gas prices very low in the U.S. Compared to other cost of living considerations. So we have low gas prices. I feel like the only thing that hasn't doubled in price in the last 5 years is gas, and everything else is just so much more expensive. Um, and the reason for that being that we are no longer importing oil from the Middle East, and it's all being made here in the US. And in fact, we're a net exporter now of gas, uh, which has kind of changed the So I think what I'm realizing is that we were more concerned about energy security than climate change. And in my mind, 5 years ago, these were both important, and these were equally good reasons to switch to renewable energies. It was one that it was bad for the environment, and two, and not renewable, like it would run out eventually. And then two was because we are dependent on other countries for this, and you know, by being so dependent on these other countries, we had these massive price spikes, and it incentivized us to do things in global policy that were complicated. Let's say, I personally went to Iraq um, twice, and found out later that maybe that was motivated by reasons other than purely for defense against terrorism and things like that. So, yeah. So, I think that maybe it was easier to say that we're doing it for climate reasons and sustainability reasons than for global stability and import reasons. But now that the import considerations are no longer as important, it seems like it seems like I guess I guess at least some of the people would probably be less worried about it overall, but it seems like almost everybody no longer worries about renewables as much as they did before. And I think that kind of highlights or uncovers the truth of the matter, which was that it was mostly um, a national security concern and not so much an environmental concern. Um, and I don't know how I feel about that, because I think okay, yes, there is one less reason now to worry about building up renewables, but I think that just because we found a ton of oil, or we have access to all this oil now, doesn't mean that it's unlimited. It is still not renewable, and it will run out someday. Just that day is much further in the future. Um, but that doesn't mean we should just like start burning it immediately. Like, we can save that. We can still try to ramp up our use of renewables and make that non-renewable resource last even longer. Um, so yeah, I'm not 100% sure how the oil prices um, work, because it seemed like for a long time there was this cartel of oil producing countries that controlled the oil prices. And now that we don't import as much from them, we shouldn't be um, at their mercy as much for oil prices. But from you know my very naive understanding, it seems like we still do rely on them to set the prices, which doesn't entirely make sense to me. Uh, but I don't actually care enough to look at to research it at this point. Um, so I feel like we should be more in control of our oil prices, and we could allow them to increase, um, not for the sake of letting oil companies profit more, but to incentivize renewable energy. Not, yeah, not 100% sure how that would work out, but overall, it seems like because we have such an abundance of natural gas and oil now, that interest in renewables has waned a little bit, even though people are saying that our demand for electricity is going to double or triple over the next 5 to 10 years. It seems like we should be still just as motivated um, to build more renewable energy as we always have been. I think the fundamentals have not changed just because there's more cheaply available natural gas in our country doesn't mean that renewables are less important than they were before. Although it seems like popular opinion would disagree. So, anyway, um, I think it's still a good company. So far, they're doing great things. They're paying the dividends. The investment is good. It's still the one thing that they don't tell you, and I wish they would, is when do the dividends, or when does this market value stop inflating, and when do I actually get dividends which are equal to this 13% figure. So I don't know when that's going to be. That's like the thing that still makes me want to do these updates, because if they're saying you get a 13% return and they are giving you a 13% return in dividends, then it's much easier to believe than if they're giving you a 7% return and a fake on paper, not fake, but a notional on paper increase in value.